It's a military dictatorship, literally in every way, shape, and form. So don't call it a democracy, but Europe's been confused about what democracy is for a long time. J.D. Vance is 100% correct to call out what happened in Romania, where the Romanian people made a choice for change. The Romanian people made a choice for change. Sovereign people of a sovereign nation. And yet Europe came in and intervened with fake manufactured intelligence, sent it up to the Romanian security services, to Romanian courts, who acted unilaterally to annul the will of the people, only to later on admit, no, there wasn't any Russian interference. None, zero, zip. They just didn't like the outcome. And now they're talking about doing the same thing in Germany, annulling a political party because they disagree with the stance that the people of Germany may take by providing their votes to this political party. Europe is this fake conglomerate of political elites and economic elites who seek to service the United States. And that's what they've been doing, servicing the United States economically and politically. But, we've had weak leadership in America that lost track of the fact that we're supposed to be the bosses, and we allowed Europe to take over in Ukraine. Thank God we finally have a president that said, no, we're ending this stupid war, the dumbest of all wars, and Europe, stick it in your ear. You guys got to pay for your security. I think you're going to see in the next couple of days announcements about the withdrawal of American troops from Europe. We're done with this nonsense. We're done with this mess. Last century, we went across the ocean twice to solve Europe's problems. We're not going to do it again. We're done with you guys. Fix it yourself, especially now that you have, well, at least you had, functioning economies, but you destroyed them. You trashed them by signing up with the sanction. And if you're going to say, well, America made us do it, then that just shows how weak you are. But, America didn't make you do it. The Biden administration made you do it. Had you stood up, maybe it wouldn't have happened. But now we have a new administration, a new sheriff in town that's saying, we're done with you. We're disgusted by you. We don't support you anymore. And he's calling them out. It's the best speech delivered by an American in the history of the Munich Security Conference. The best speech, the strongest speech, and the one that will have the greatest impact, because J.D. Vance put Europe on notice that we're finished with you. And all the Europeans that were thinking America would never unplug, think again. We're done with you. I mean, you are literally the problem. J.D. Vance called it out. You're the problem. Europe's the problem. You create all the problems. Everything could be solved if Europe would just stop being stupid, led by unelected bureaucrats who come in to try and impose an agenda that nobody in Europe supports. Put it up to the vote of the people of Europe. They will not support this ridiculous agenda. And one by one, this concept of sovereignty is returning to European states. But every time a European state dares say we're sovereign, we don't support it, they're accused of being a tool of Russia. They're attacked. They're undermined. Nations that wanted to join the European Union, like Georgia, aren't allowed to have free and fair elections, apparently. No, they have to surrender to the outside influences brought in by Europe and the United States, the old United States, not the new United States, because the new United States just dismantled that entire infrastructure, the one that underwrote the most undemocratic activities imaginable in Georgia and elsewhere. And in Europe, we're done. We're finished. Hooray. This is the revolution I was telling you about, Nima. I said it was coming. I said it's going to happen domestically. Anybody who doesn't think that what's happening here ain't a revolution, you're dumber than dirt. And now it's happening globally. We just told Europe. I mean, remember, it wasn't just but a year ago that we had a president talking about the sacred obligation of the United States to Europe. There was no sacred obligation. He was part of the establishment that had transatlantic bonds with the European establishment, and they played off of each other. It's not about the American people. The American people don't have a sacred obligation to Europe if Europe's job is to undermine American democracy. And we take umbrage at any notion. When I have the British saying that they can come across the water and arrest me and take me away because of a post I put on the internet, I say, bring it on. And I love J.D. Vance. Bring it on, Europe. You want to do this? You want to play that game against us, America? We'll kick your ass. Yeah, you want to call it the ugly American? I don't care. I don't care anymore because we're trying to break free of the old ugly America. We've got a president that says that we shouldn't be running around, trying to solve problems militarily, that these are economic issues. Yeah, he'd like to flex America's economic muscles. Good luck with that. I don't know how strong those muscles are, but he's done with the war game. He's done with playing the bomb game, and yet the world seems upset with this. And I'm sick and tired of that. If you want to bomb the world, Europe, build your own damn airplanes, build your own damn bombs, and pay the damn consequence. Don't expect us to do it for you. You want to fight the Russians? Have at it. They've kicked your ass regularly. I seem to remember in the history books, Russian troops marching through Paris. Oh, they also marched through Berlin. They'll do it again if that's the game you want to play, you stupid, ignorant punks. But we're not going to back you up. We're not going to support it anymore. We're done with you. Arrest me. I was just told I was invited to go to Germany. I'm not going to Germany. Want to know why I'm not going to Germany? Because if somebody asked me a question about Gaza, and I spoke the truth about Gaza and said that Israel was a genocidal state mirroring the practices of Nazi Germany, I would be arrested. I'm not going to do that. You Germans can stick it in your ear. Fix your problems. You want to claim to be a democracy? Then by God, support free speech. Be strong enough to handle criticism. You don't have to say Scott Ritter's right. But by God, if you're going to arrest me for saying what is so frickin' obviously the truth, then the hell with you. And that's the American approach. You really think we're going to go spend our tourist dollars in Europe anymore? I mean, Paris used to be the city of lights. It's now a gutter, an open sewage. Germany, who hell knows what's going on in Germany anymore? There's a few places in Europe that maybe we can go to. Sweden's a disgusting cesspool. They've stopped being Europe. They've stopped being sovereign nations. What the hell is a German anymore? They practiced open borders to the point where they've diluted the integrity of the German DNA pool. You don't even know what a German is anymore. And I'm not a racist. I'm just saying that there are Germans, there are French, there are Italians, there's Poles, there's Bulgarians. These are people with a proud history, and they should embrace that history. Doesn't mean you can't intermarry. I married a frickin' Georgian. I'm proud of that fact. America's a nation of immigrants. I'm all for it. But, she took not only the oath, but she took a test to become an American citizen. She knows more about the Constitution of the United States and basic civics of the United States than 98% of the natural-born Americans, because she takes being an American seriously. She's bought into this game, who we are and what we are as a nation. If you're going to live in Germany, buy into the German game. Don't come in and say, no, we're going to have our own Sharia court. The hell you are. It's Germany. They don't do Sharia law in Germany. If you want to do Sharia law, go to a place that does it. Go to live in Afghanistan. Go to modern Syria. Go to wherever the hell you want to go. But don't go to Germany. Don't go to Sweden. Don't go to France. Those are European nations with their own culture, their own history, their own background. And they've forgotten about that. That's why there is no France anymore. That's why there is no Germany anymore, because they stand for nothing. And that the mistake was calling it all Europe. What the hell is Europe? I mean, even when it was first envisioned, we had old Europe and new Europe. You remember Donald Rumsfeld, saying, well, we don't care about old Europe. We're embracing new Europe. Well, new Europe is the Eastern nations that used to be under, Soviet rule. What's pretty interesting about the Eastern states? I don't agree with half their politics, but that the purest European states there are out there. Poles are Poles, Czechs are Czechs, Slovakians are Slovakians, Estonians are Estonians, Lithuanians are Lithuanians, Latvians are Latvians. For better or for worse, at least we know who the hell we're dealing with. Germans? What's a German anymore? French? I don't know. Go to Marseille and tell me you can identify what a Frenchman is. And I'm not here. I'm not being racist here, because when I was with the United Nations, I dealt with French officers who were damn well French, and they let you know it. But they happened to come from the Caribbean, from French colonies. But they went to France. They put on the uniform of the French army. They spoke French fluently. And while they could enjoy Creole food and things like that, they were French. They identified as French. They said, I am a Frenchman. You can have a black person in France to be from Senegal and say, I am French. And I'll believe it because they identify as French. The problem is France is populated by people who don't identify as French anymore. They identify as something else, and that doesn't work. In Germany, you have Turks, you have Kurds who identify as Germans. They are Germans. They know damn well what they bought into. They say, I want to be part of this culture. But then you have others who say, no, we're not. Well, if you're separate, then don't live in Germany. Live where you want to identify with, but don't try and bring that to Germany. It's the same problem we have in the United States. This is a nation of immigrants. And I'm so damn proud of the immigrant communities. And I respect their culture. I mean, what makes America great? I mean, just right here, I can go to an Italian restaurant, a Mexican restaurant, Chinese restaurant. I mean, the food is everywhere. We can enjoy. We just had Chinese New Year. Cinco de Mayo is a holiday that I proudly go out and watch. All right, I'm not Mexican, so I don't celebrate with it, but I watch it. I respect their right to. This is the melting pot. It's beautiful. But at the end of the day, every one of these communities who embrace their own cultural identities are Americans. They believe in the American system. They believe in the American dream. They embrace the American laws. They embrace the values. And I'm proud to call them my fellow citizens. But if somebody comes in and says, no, we're doing a carve out, not in my country, you're not. You don't do a carve out in America. You don't get to create your own little whatever it is you want to call it. Go home if that's what you want. When you come here, you embrace the big picture. And Europe's lost faith with that. And I think J.D. Vance is just expressing the frustration of most Americans about what Europe has become. We no longer identify with that. I come from European stock. Half my family comes from Germany, the other half primarily from Scotland, Scotch-Irish. But if you're today, I don't think I could recognize Germany as Germany anymore. And I damn sure I'm not going to England because, the home of the Magna Carta, the home of freedom and all this kind of stuff, it ain't free anymore. When you have cops able to come in and kick down the door and arrest you for posting a meme online, our fellow journalist, Richard Medhurst, is under investigation because he dares speak out about bad policy in Gaza. England's not free. England doesn't represent the values that I cherish. Germany doesn't represent the values that I cherish. Europe doesn't represent the values that I cherish. The country that is actually closer to these values than Europe is Russia. I've been there, seen it firsthand. And I will tell you right now, there's more free speech in Russia. It's not perfect. You can't get away with everything in Russia, but there's more free speech in Russia than there is anywhere in Europe today. And that's for damn sure.
Scott, one of the main disagreements, you've mentioned about disagreements between the United States under Trump and Europe. And the main disagreement right now is the situation in Ukraine. The way that Europe sees the situation and the United States under Donald Trump sees. Here is what Hexet said about the plan on the part of the United States.
Representing inside these negotiations. So my job today and in Brussels was to introduce realism to the conversation. The reality that returning to 2014 as borders as part of a negotiated settlement is unlikely. The reality of U.S. troops in Ukraine is unlikely. The reality of Ukraine membership in NATO as a part of a negotiated settlement, unlikely. And I stand by the comments that I made on that first day in the Ukraine contact group. And that.
Do you think that the European leaders in the current shape that they're in are capable of understanding what Hexet is talking about?
First thing, when you say European leaders, I mean, is Viktor Orban a European leader?
No, I'm talking about the Western European leaders who are in favor of the continuation of the conflict in Ukraine.
Okay, but now you're specific because originally when anybody used the term European, what does that mean?
Yeah.
So what you mean are the former French citizens, the former German citizens who have sold out any concept of national sovereignty in favor of this broad brush thing called Europe that doesn't exist. Yeah, I think there's a disconnect. These people have committed too much political and economic capital into this failed enterprise. And it's the same thing I said about the Iraq war. You know, America went to war on the basis of a lie, but how are we going to change that? It isn't going to change because America suddenly woke up and realized it was wrong. It changed because the politicians who committed political capital to the Iraq problem, they had to leave. You needed, you know, several election cycles to purify the congressional pool, so to speak, so that people could change voting outcomes and not lose their political jobs. The thing about Europe is that they don't have, you know, a common, election-based mechanism to get their officials. Each state has different things, but what you're seeing is one by one, they're falling, they're collapsing, they're being purged out. Eventually, Schultz's history. I mean, J.D. Vance wouldn't even meet with him. You saw that, right? You know why he wouldn't meet with him? Because he ain't going to be in power much longer. Why waste the time? He's a nobody. Perfect response. Perfect response. And we should do the same thing to the French. You know, figure it out, guys, and then we'll meet with you. But I mean, why waste time talking to Emmanuel Macron or his prime minister when the prime minister is an illegitimate prime minister forced in, shoehorned in by Macron because he can't accept the electoral results that took place in France. He can't accept the will of the people. You know, you want America to meet with that, to endorse that. Europe will have to purge itself of these political elites, and they're not going to self-purge. They can't. They have committed to a course of action that they can't reverse away from. And so the only way they get removed is through the power of the vote. And you're seeing as nations start to regain a sense of sovereignty. And in Germany, I know it comes under a lot of criticism, but Alternative for Deutschland, AfD, is all about being German. Some people say, oh, that means they're racist. I don't know. I'm not going to buy into that simplistic thing. I'm saying they're proud of being German. Maybe that is racist. If you identify as a German, you identify as a race, perhaps, and that makes it racist. And then I can't say it's a bad thing to identify as a German. It's a good thing if you're a German, just like identifying being a Frenchman as a French person. That's a good thing, I believe. Being Italian, that's a good thing. What's bad is saying I'm European when you're really German. What's bad is saying I'm European when you're really French. And right now you have these people that have forgotten who they are. If you're a German, you cannot support continued engagement in Ukraine because you're committing national suicide doing so. Your economy can't sustain it. You'll never build up the military, but you're committed on a course of action that's going to destroy Germany, bring harm to the German people because of some European value. There is no European value. It's just that the Europeans bought into this lie called Ukraine, and they can't disengage right now because there's no mechanism for disengagement. And the United States is just saying, and here's the thing, we don't care what happens to Europe if they can't get on board. I mean, you have this Callas lady talking about there can't be a peace treaty, without Europe involved. Oh, yes, there can. Because you don't matter. Let me remind Europe of two simple facts. You put pressure on Zelensky to change the constitution of Ukraine that said there can be no negotiations with the Russians. And then you said there will be no negotiations with the Russians. And then you said, well, there can only be negotiations when the Russians lose, and therefore we have to build up a military and go to war and bring the Russians down. And now what you have a situation where the Russians ain't going to lose. You're not going to beat them. And the United States got tired of playing your game, so we bypassed you and went straight to the Russians and say, let's fix this thing. And now you have the Europeans and Ukraine saying, well, we demand a seat at the table. You didn't want a table to begin with. You said there will be no negotiation table. Trump and Putin sat down and said, screw you, we're setting our own table, and now you want a seat? You're not getting a seat at this table. Not at all. You can be present,